Let me share something almost nobody has ever properly explained to you. Right now, in 2026, there are three separate pieces of good news waiting for American seniors. Three different pools of money with your name attached to them. And most people watching this will walk right past every single one. Not because they're ineligible, but because no one ever bothered to tell them these existed. After months of headlines about cuts, freezes, and rising prices everywhere you look, I want to do something different today. I want to hand you three ways to put money back in your pocket. One can erase a bill that's currently being deducted straight from your Social Security check. One can significantly cut down the heating and cooling bill that hits you twice a year. And the third is an entirely separate monthly check that a huge number of seniors are convinced they're not entitled to, and they're simply wrong. Study after study shows that roughly 1 in 3 older Americans who qualify for these benefits never claim a single dollar of them. That's money sitting there that already belongs to you. So stick around, because I'm about to walk you through exactly what these three benefits are, who genuinely qualifies, the one-income misunderstanding that makes people rule themselves out when they shouldn't, and precisely how to apply for each one. Here's how we'll do this. I'll cover them one by one in plain language, no jargon involved. For each, I'll explain what it is, who actually qualifies, meaning the real income figures for this year, not some vague low-income label, and the exact steps to claim it. I'll also pause to warn you about a scam that trails this kind of money like a shadow, because wherever there's a benefit seniors can claim, someone's on the phone trying to steal it. And I'm saving the biggest one for last, so stay with me the whole way through.
Above all, listen closely when I get to the income section, because that's where thousands of people mistakenly conclude they earn too much and hang up on money that was rightfully theirs. My name is Walter Barron. I've spent more than 15 years as an estate attorney, sitting across kitchen tables with families, combing through the fine print of these programs line by line. I'm not selling you anything today. I don't work for the government, and I don't earn a cent whether you claim these benefits or not. I just read the rules so you don't have to, and I explain in plain words what they actually mean for your finances. And before I begin, one thing, it doesn't matter if you're 62 or 92, and it doesn't matter if you're convinced you make too much. Watch all three before deciding any of them isn't for you, because the people who assume they don't qualify are exactly the ones leaving the most money behind. Now let me address the question I can already sense some of you asking.
If this is real, why has nobody ever told me? It's a fair question, and the answer is the same frustrating one for all three. These programs only pay out what you apply for. There's no one whose job it is to look at your circumstances, pick up the phone, and say, based on your income, you qualify for this, let me sign you up. That person doesn't exist. These benefits hide behind confusing names and applications most people never come across. And the folks who need them most, older Americans living on a fixed income, are exactly the ones least likely to go digging through a government website to find them. So the money just sits there, unclaimed, year after year. Today we're going to fix that. Here's the first piece of good news, and you can start on it this very week. If you're enrolled in Medicare, you're almost certainly paying a premium for Part B. That's the portion covering your doctor visits, and it's deducted directly from your Social Security check before you ever see it. In 2026, that premium sits a bit over $200 a month. Read that again, that's more than $2,400 a year quietly pulled from your check month after month. Now here's the good news. There's a program called a Medicare Savings Program where your state will cover that premium for you, not reduce it, cover it entirely. Which means that $200 plus stops disappearing from your Social Security, and your monthly check grows by that same amount. For many seniors, that's the single biggest raise they'll see all year. It doesn't come from Congress, and it doesn't come from a cost of living adjustment. It comes from a program almost nobody thinks to apply for. And its reach goes even further than just the premium. There are actually a few tiers of this program. The most generous tier for the lowest incomes doesn't just cover your Part B premium, it also eliminates your Medicare deductibles and copays, so those surprise bills after a doctor visit stop showing up in your mailbox altogether. The other tiers for slightly higher incomes cover just the premium itself. But every single tier puts real money back into your pocket. So who qualifies? This is where I need you to stay with me, because this is exactly where people rule themselves out and walk away from their own money. Eligibility is based on income, and the thresholds are higher than most people guess. For 2026, depending on which tier you're looking at, a single person can earn up to roughly $1,800 a month and still qualify to have that Part B premium covered. For a married couple, the threshold climbs even higher into the $2,400 a month. So before you dismiss this and say, I make too much, go check, because plenty of people who are certain they earn too much land squarely inside that window. Don't disqualify yourself in your own head at the kitchen table. Let the actual application do the math. Let me put a face on this, because the numbers don't really sink in until you picture a person. Think of a widow. I'll call her Margaret. Margaret is 73. She receives a modest Social Security check, and like clockwork, over $200 of it vanishes every month for her Medicare Part B before the money ever reaches her bank account. Margaret always assumed these programs were meant for other people, poorer people, not her. But when someone finally sat down and ran her actual numbers, she came in under the threshold. Her state took over that premium, and just like that, her Social Security check grew by $200 every month, roughly $2,500 more a year in her pocket. Nothing about Margaret's situation changed except that someone finally showed her the door was open. Most people never get that someone. How do you claim it? You apply through your state's Medicaid office or an equivalent agency. And here's the easy button. You get free help from your local state health insurance assistance program known as LIHEAP. They'll walk you through the whole process, and it costs you nothing. Applying is free, and you should never ever pay anyone a fee to sign up for this. When you make that call, you don't need to be an expert or have every piece of paperwork memorized. Just say plainly, I'm on Medicare, I'm living on a fixed income, and I want to know if I qualify to have my Part B premium covered. That single sentence is enough to get things moving. They'll ask about your monthly income and guide you through the rest. You don't need to know the program's exact name or which tier applies to you. That's their job. Your only job is to raise your hand and ask. The people who receive this money are simply the ones who made the call. And that brings me to the warning I promised, because this is exactly the kind of money scammers love. Here's how it plays out. The moment word spreads about a benefit like this, the phone calls begin. Someone calls sounding official, claiming to be from Medicare or Social Security, and says they can refund your premium or start your new benefit today. They just need to confirm your bank account, Social Security number or Medicare number. Stop. Hang up. Medicare and Social Security do not call you out of nowhere asking for that information in order to hand you money. They simply don't. If someone on the phone is pressuring you and asking for your bank details to release a benefit, that's a scammer, not the government. Reach out to the source yourself, your state office or SHIP, and never hand over your numbers to whoever called you. All right, that's the first one. Now let's move to the second, because this one addresses a bill I know keeps some of you up at night, your energy bill. There's a federal program administered through your state called the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program. Most people have never heard of it, and those who have assume it couldn't possibly apply to them. It helps cover your heating and cooling costs, and depending on your household, income, and location, it can contribute anywhere from a couple $100 up to around $1,000 toward your bill, usually paid directly to your utility company. So you never even have to handle the money. Here's the part most people miss, and it matters a lot. When people hear heating assistance, they picture only the dead of winter and nothing else. But this program covers cooling too. And for an older person, air conditioning in the peak of summer isn't a luxury, it's a safety matter. There's usually a crisis component built in as well. If you've received a shut-off notice, or your furnace or air conditioner has failed, there are emergency funds specifically designed for that situation. And here's the relief in it. Claiming this doesn't reduce your Social Security, it doesn't count against you as income, and it doesn't take anything away from anyone else who needs help. I do need to be straightforward about one thing, and it's the reason I'm telling you this now rather than 6 months from now. Funding for this program is limited, and once a state exhausts its yearly allotment, that's it until it's replenished. States prioritize the households they consider most vulnerable, and older Americans on fixed incomes are usually near the top of that list, but you have to actually get in line. Applications are open right now through spring, so don't wait until the cold weather hits and the funding is already gone. Picture a retired couple living off his pension and both their Social Security checks, watching the gas bill creep up every winter and rationing their heat just to make ends meet. They'd never applied for assistance in their lives and had no plans to start. They figured it was charity, figured it wasn't meant for people like them. One phone call later, a few $100s went straight to their utility company. The crisis fund repaired the furnace that had been limping along for 2 winters, and the cold months stopped being something they dreaded. That help had been available the entire time. They just had to ask for it. How do you claim it? Contact your local energy assistance office or do the simplest thing possible and dial 211. In most of the country, that's a free helpline that will connect you directly to the office serving your area. It's free to apply, and once again, no legitimate organization ever charges a fee for signing up. Now here's the third one, and honestly, for the right person, this could be the biggest of the three, because it isn't a discount or a bill being covered, it's an entirely separate check. It's called Supplemental Security Income, or SSI. I need you to keep 2 ideas separate in your mind, because this is exactly where people get confused. There's Social Security, the retirement check you earned through years of working. And then there's SSI, a completely separate federal check for people who are 65 or older, or disabled, and living on a low income with limited savings. Here's the mistake that costs people the most. Most folks assume that because they're already receiving Social Security, they can't possibly get this one too. That's simply not true. If your Social Security check is small, you can very often receive SSI on top of it to bring you up. One doesn't automatically cancel out the other. For 2026, this amount increased. There was a cost of living adjustment at the end of last year, and the maximum a single person can now receive from SSI is around $994 a month, and for a couple, just under $1,500. Now, if you're already receiving some Social Security, your SSI is typically reduced by a portion of that. So you might not get the full amount, but a reduced amount isn't nothing. A partial SSI check every month for a senior on a tight fixed income can be the difference between a month that works and one that doesn't. Over a year, even a partial check adds up to thousands of dollars you're currently not receiving. And here's where people rule themselves out again, so let me ease that concern. It's true this program looks at your resources and savings, but the home you live in doesn't count, and your car generally doesn't count either. So don't look at the house you own and assume you're disqualified before you've even asked. This benefit was built exactly for the person who worked their entire life, receives a modest Social Security check, and is quietly falling a little short every single month. Think of a man I'll call Tom, 38 years on the job, a small pension that eventually disappeared, and a Social Security check that no longer stretches to the end of the month. Tom was certain SSI was welfare and figured he'd never see a dime of it. He was wrong on both counts. A partial SSI check landed on top of his Social Security a few $100s extra every month, and for the first time in years, the math actually worked out. If that sounds like you or someone you love, this is the part to pay close attention to. How do you claim it? Apply directly through the Social Security Administration online, by phone, or in person at your local office, and it's free to apply. You don't need to pay anyone a cent to file this on your behalf. Now let me explain why this particular year is the one to go check all three, even if you looked once before and got turned down or gave up. At the very end of last year, the annual cost of living adjustment shifted the numbers. The SSI amount went up, the income limits on these programs moved, and the Medicare premium changed. And when those numbers shift, the eligibility line for who qualifies shifts right along with it, meaning people who were just barely over the edge last year could easily be sitting comfortably under it this year without changing a single thing about their own lives. So if you checked 2 or 3 years ago and decided you made too much, that decision is outdated. The line is moved. Go check again. I've seen this happen firsthand. Someone gets told, no, you're $50 a month over the limit, and they treat that like a life sentence, never trying again. But that limit isn't set in stone. It climbs a little almost every year when the cost of living adjustment kicks in. So that $50 that closed the door last year, this year the door may already be open, and nobody is going to call and tell you it's swung open. The only way to find out is to check again. It costs you one phone call. It could be worth thousands, so let me total it all up for you, because I think seeing it stacked together lands differently. The Medicare Savings Program, if your state takes over that Part B premium, that's more than $2,400 a year back in your Social Security check. And in its most generous tier, your deductibles and copays vanish on top of that. Energy assistance up to around $1,000 a year toward heating and cooling paid straight to your utility. And SSI for the right person, that's up to nearly $12,000 a year. And even a partial check adds up to thousands. Add it all together, and for many of you, we're not talking about pocket change. We're talking about the difference between a retirement where every month is a white-knuckle squeeze and one where you can finally breathe easier. And here's what I really want you to take away. The seniors who collect all of this aren't smarter than you, and they didn't earn it any more than you did. They simply found out it existed and filled out the paperwork. That's the only difference between them and the 1 in 3 who never claim a dollar, and now you know it exists too. Let me make this concrete with one final example. Picture a single senior on a modest Social Security check who happens to qualify for all three. Her state takes over her Part B premium. That's roughly $2,400 a year back in her check. The energy program covers a portion of her heating in winter and cooling in summer, several $100s more, and a partial SSI check quietly fills in the months that used to fall short. Add it all up and you're looking at thousands of tax-free dollars a year flowing to a woman who 12 months ago would have told you flatly that the government didn't owe her a thing. That's what claiming all three can actually look like. Before I share the last and most important piece, I want to mention something I put together since so many of you have asked for it. Everything I cover on this channel, the benefits most seniors never claim, the checks and credits hidden inside programs you already interact with, the tax breaks, the strategies for protecting your Social Security and your home, every move that keeps every dollar you're owed in your own pocket. I've compiled all of it into one place, written in plain English. In a guide called the Senior Money Playbook, it's laid out step by step with the actual numbers to look for and the exact words to use when you call. If you'd like it, the link is in the description below. But everything you need to take the first step on all three of these is right here in this video. So here's that final piece. Here's what I want you to do. Don't let another year slip by leaving this money on the table because you assumed at your own kitchen table that you didn't qualify. Take these one at a time. For the Medicare Savings Program, call your state health insurance assistance program, SHIP, or your state Medicaid office. For energy help, dial 211 or locate your local energy assistance office, and do it soon while funding is still available. And for SSI, go directly to Social Security. All three are free to apply for. And remember what I told you about the phone. The government is not going to call you asking for your bank number in order to hand you these benefits. You go to them. Never give your information to whoever calls you. Because here's the truth underneath all of this. Nobody is going to knock on your door and hand you what you're owed. The system is quietly built to keep paying only the people who ask, and it will happily let you go through your entire retirement without ever claiming a dime of this if you let it. The only person who's going to make sure you get every dollar with your name on it is you. If this opened your eyes, do one thing for me. Share it with someone you love who's 65 or older, especially anyone on a tight fixed income who's convinced the government doesn't owe them a thing. They may be sitting on thousands of dollars a year they've never once heard of, and they're the least likely person to ever go find it. You can be the reason they finally do. Subscribe and turn on the bell so the next one finds you.